Yeah, could just quick two quick ones. The unenclosed land where the pilot scheme is on, if a farmer has an appropriate assessment, and I know that you said they don't get the grant aid or the yearly thing, but they do get the costs of it. Are they allowed at the moment on degraded bog to do the same as what Bordnamona and Bordnamona is doing at the moment? And the other question I have, my understanding is that you had nobody from forestry on the CAP negotiation team. Is that correct?
Okay, Mr. Hayes. Deal with Deputy Rahidi Reyes and Deputy Fitzmaurice's questions there, please.
Yeah, just on Deputy Fitzmaurice's questions first, if I can. The scheme that he talks about is not a scheme for planting on unenclosed land. It's a scheme for potentially planting on industrial cutaway bogs, which are no longer used for that purpose, which Bordnamona have effectively decommissioned.
Well, why can't a person do the same on their bog if Bordnamona can on industrial?
Well, because we're working this as a pilot initiative on these industrial cutaway bogs to see what's possible for that particular type of land, to see if, considering the vast tracts of land that are in Bordnamona's possession, could it make a valuable contribution to the environmental goals? And
could it make a valuable contribution under CAP for mitigation measures for a farmer that would have 30, 50 cows? Why aren't they? Will they be allowed? If you're going to give them a license to do that, isn't it only right and proper that if someone else has 20 acres of bog, degraded bog, and they get the appropriate assessment, it's only right and fair that they'd be able to do the same type of timber? I'm not talking about spruce or anything. I think it's all native stuff. Wouldn't it be only right that they'd be able to do that?
Yeah, and obviously any landowner with any type of land is entitled to inquire or make an application to the department for the planting on that land. It may not be possible. I'm not sure of the type of degraded bog land that you're talking about, Deputy, but I think we're talking about two very different issues here. Your second question, sorry, I didn't note down, the second question was on...
The second question, had you a representative on CAP when you were for negotiations in relation to forestry?
So I think the Deputy is referring to the CAP Consultative Committee, which the department has, which is a stakeholder body. There are a number of bodies on it, and there is a strong overlap between that CAP Consultative Committee and
a representative
and the Forestry Policy Group, including farm organisations, amongst others. There is an application in the last 2-3 weeks from the forestry sector to join the CAP Consultative Committee, and I understand our colleagues on the CAP side are
Colin, the game is over.
Looking at that at the moment.
Minister McGonigal is abroad in Brussels, and whatever we're going to do in CAP, it's going to be decided this week. Like, the game is over if we have no one in it in the last 3 years. CAP has gone on 3 years. Negotiations have gone on 3 years. The farming organisations are prodding at us for 3 years. It is damnable to think that that there was no one put as a representative to go fighting for basically the forestry sector in it.
Well, listen, forestry issues are considered within the design of the CAP schemes, because obviously the forestry divisions of the department, first of all, are inputting strongly to the design of the CAP schemes and the agri-environment issues. The forestry sector themselves only came along in the last 2 weeks to request a place on the CAP Consultative Committee, which is up and running. But just to explain, what's happening in Brussels these 2 days is the setting of the ground rules, if you like, for what the schemes like. A lot of the work, there's huge work still has to be done on the design of all these schemes. The forestry sector have come along now and asked, could they be part of the committee which is inputting to that? So there's still a decision to be made on that, and there are obviously lots and lots of groups who would like to be inputting to that. But listen, at any one time, in fact, we met the forestry sector last week to discuss what the input to CAP schemes might look like. So whether they're inside or outside that formal structure of the CAP Consultative Committee, it's absolutely no barrier to ongoing discussion. And listen, we're wide open to any sensible suggestions for how significant...
There was one other thing as well, Colin. Our committee...
in the next round of schemes.
Our committee spent a good bit of time putting a document together, and the chairman can correct me, but I didn't see any feedback coming back from the ideas that everyone, and in fairness, they spent a lot of time at it, every member, didn't spend a lot of time at it. And the other thing that was asked, and I think it was asked to Mr. Dunn, was on the unenclosed land. We were asked, I think it was Paul Daly or somebody asked, or Paul Keogh, about the unenclosed land to see what we can do on it, and there was feedback to come back to the commission. We got nothing. What's the story on them two things?
Well, so in terms of the committee's report, the Minister responded in detail recently, outlining how the department and where it could incorporate all of the suggestions. Obviously, we looked at all of the suggestions. There is a fair degree of overlap, as you might expect, with Project Woodland, and I think the Minister touched on that in her letter, so I'm sure the Deputy has seen that. The question of unenclosed land, apologies, we didn't respond in detail to a question that was raised at our previous session. We'll do that immediately now as part of our response to this session. That shouldn't have happened, so we'll make that right in our response now.
Thank you.